Good morning and welcome to Worldwide Wisdom. We are learning Chassidus today. We are learning Chassidus, and we're learning about how to cope with life's chaos. We're learning about how to cope with life's chaos. We're learning about Noach. We had a little break for Hanukkah, and we spoke about the oils and the themes of Hanukkah. But let's go back to the water, from oil to water. Let's go to the rising flood of Noach, where the flood of Noach, the Alter Rebbe teaches us. Isn't it amazing how the Alter Rebbe makes the Torah so real, where he takes the flood of Noach and he says that that's your bank account, or the lack thereof. When you open up your bank account and it just doesn't have the right amount of zeros, or maybe you open your bills and they have too many zeros, and you realize, you feel like you're drowning. That is the flood of Noach, folks. That is so real. It's so practical. It's so down to earth. You can feel the wetness of the water. Says the Alter Rebbe that the floods are there in order to nurture your faith. That's what the purpose of the floods are. It's there in order to nurture your faith, because just like that olive, the Jewish people compared to an olive. You want to produce oil out of an olive. You can't just have it in a casual, comfortable way. Oil that comes out, the liquid that comes out of an olive is called olive juice. If you want to get oil out of an olive, you got to squeeze the pit. And that doesn't happen by just a casual, comfortable squeeze. You need a millstone. Have you ever felt the weight of a millstone? Have you ever felt?
Yeah.
You have? Oh, tazoi. It's called marriage. The Talmud says, Rechaim betzavari. The Talmud describes marriage as a millstone around his neck. His neck. It doesn't say her neck.
Everybody knows that.
It's a millstone around his neck. It's like,
that was the first marriage.
Right. That is marriage. Marriage is a millstone, man. And that is, well, we say in Chabad that, we say amongst the Bachrim, the students, that marriage isn't as good as the unmarried men think it is. And it's not as bad as the married men make it look. So the millstone is what's going to bring out your oils. If you're experiencing some millstone, if you're experiencing some crushing pressure in your life, be an olive. Spread some oil, right? Now, the Alter Rebbe now applies this. We applied this to prayer, where we said that whose prayer is more precious to God? Is it the guy that davens, the guy that learns all Torah all day long? Or is it the guy that has to go to work? He's got to be out of here by 9 a.m. on the button, right? And he's at home, and he won't be home he might barely be home to tuck his kids home at night. Whose prayer is more precious before God? So we learned here that actually the one is more precious before God is the one who has to struggle to make a living. He's got the financial anxieties because he's the guy that's dealing with the millstone. He's the guy that's dealing with the crushing pressures. The guy, I was telling my son went off to yeshiva yesterday. And I said to him, one of the most impressionable teachings that I heard when I was studying on yeshiva was when my teacher, Rabbi Levi Weinberg, told us, he says, you're the young yeshiva boys. You're going into yeshiva. You're like the Jews going into the desert. Before you can enter the promised land, you got to endure the desert for a little bit. And in the desert, you're entering into the clouds of glory. All your physical needs are taken care of. Your food comes from manna, your water's from the well, protection from the clouds, even air conditioning. All you have to worry about is one thing, spiritual growth. That's it. That's the only thing you have to worry about. Every one of your financial needs is taken care of. And that's what the yeshiva boys are like. I said to my son, you're going into yeshiva, you're in the clouds of glory. I envy you. It's so beautiful that you have this amazing opportunity. You got food appearing on the table 3 times a day. You don't have to receive credit card bills. You don't have to worry about paying the rent. You don't have to worry about the neighbors. You don't have to worry about cleaning the ice or the snow or mowing the lawn or going to the town council meeting. You could just learn Torah all day and all night. That's amazing. But what actually is more precious to God, says the Alter Rebbe in this discourse from 1807, it's the prayer of the Jew who's distracted. He's able to squeeze out a few minutes here and there to daven. He's able to squeeze out a few minutes to study Torah. That is the oil that's produced from the crushing pressure. That is even more precious. Today we're going to apply it in a new direction, into Shabbos. We're going to apply it into Shabbos because we're going to say that there's actually in the language of the Mayim of the Alter Rebbe, he talks about naicha derucha, of nachas, of pleasure to God, pleasure that's provided to God through our flood, through our financial anxieties, through our struggles. And we learned that there are 2 levels of there's lower level nachas that God gets and higher level nachas that God gets, right? The former corresponds to the lower Shabbos, and the other one that's another one. The higher nachas corresponds to the higher Shabbos. What's the difference between the higher Shabbos and the lower Shabbos? So we're about to learn right now. The lower Shabbos is the Shabbos that we experience every seventh day. That's what happens. We stop working. And when we stop working on the seventh day, we experience Shabbos, cessation of work. We're able to experience some sort of elevation of the spirit, and that is Shabbos that we can all experience. It's a gift to those willing to taste of it, those who have the courage to approach the buffet and experience the joy of Shabbos. But that's not the higher Shabbos. The higher Shabbos is something which is going to happen with the coming of Mashiach, right? And I believe, I don't think the discourse says this explicitly. We'll check it out in a moment. But I believe that there's two kinds of crushing that leads to two kinds of Shabbos. The lower Shabbos is produced by the 6 days of the work week. Now, that's a lot of work. But I believe that the greater Shabbos is the product of 6,000 years almost of anti-Semitism. And there's a very big difference. You know, one of them is like, when you're crushing the grapes with your feet, and the other one is when you're crushing the olives with a millstone, right? I guess, maybe the regular Shabbos, the 6 days of the work week is the millstone, but imagine you crush the olives now, not with a millstone, but with
Intense study.
No, but what would be a physical analogy? What's heavier than a millstone? I mean, imagine you dropped, I don't know, some like a building on.
That's not going to go.
Something. What would be heavier than a millstone?
The moon. Yeah. The moon.
I don't know. Let's say you dropped a garbage truck.
Well,
on the
a tank. The tanks we use Israel. Those are.
Let's call it a tank. Oh, yeah, fine. Call it a tank. Yeah. Right. Imagine a tank goes over the olive pits. It's going to be a totally different experience. A steamroller. There you go. A steamroller. So you have the millstone and you got the steamroller. Beautiful. The steamroller is going to produce a totally different kind of oil. Friends, we today are experiencing the kind of crushing which I don't believe the Jews have experienced for many, many years. Now, let's be clear. We Jews have experienced a hell of a lot of brutality. Do you have any idea what happened in the Colosseum? Have you been to the Colosseum? Put your hand up if you've been to the Colosseum.
The LA Colosseum?
I have been to the Colosseum in Rome, but I've not entered. I've not had my body did not allow me to enter that building. I stood outside as recently as this summer, and I could not allow myself. There's a lady came over there, the crazy lines. Lady came over and says, I've got a special ticket. They can take it, expedited, fast pass, whatever. I was like, I said to my wife, I cannot go in there because who do you think was mauled alive by gladiators and tigers and bears and lions? And let me ask you something else. Do you know what happened in the labyrinths beneath the Colosseum?
The cages for the gladiators.
Do you know what motivated the gladiators? The spoils of victory were the wives of the victims. They were waiting there downstairs, and they knew after they heard that their husbands being
There are 70 virgins
torn apart, they were then sent downstairs to the Jewish wives, and it's just horrific to think about and to explore it like some sort of a tourist site is nothing which I'm even capable of doing. I'm sorry, I can't go. No, they've been to Auschwitz.
I can't go down.
And you know, it's not even my bucket list.
How about, have you been underneath the wall where you're close to the temple?
Which wall?
The hotel.
Yeah.
You've gone underneath?
But in the
What the Towers of Chizkiyahu? What about it?
2 temples were destroyed. How can you be there? How can you go underneath there?
No. Fair enough. I'm not going to avoid Europe now or the world. But when there's a place of designated for torture of Jewish people, designated for torture chambers, not anything I can relate to. In other words, I want to say this. Listen, it's a feeling. It's not only an intellect. It's a feeling. I'm not telling you what to do.
I don't disagree.
Yeah. So it's just a perspective to take into consideration. So, and by the way, we're giving them tourist dollars now, right? We're giving them tourist dollars now, right? Oh, you tortured us to the point that it became a world spectacle, one of the 7 wonders of somebody's list, right? And now I'm going to pay you for the privilege? No, thank you. And I got to wait in line. No, I got to wait half a day waiting in line here. No thanks. So, point is, we have experienced so much crushing. It's unthinkable. And now, we got this Western craziness coming out of Sydney, Australia. You've got
In the U.S. too.
yeah, it's like the right wing party now here in America is losing its mind. What are they fighting about in the right wing party? It's all about how much should we hate the Jews, right? This is the big rift.
It's back to the purity of the Christian state.
Okay, I don't know the details, but it's pretty bad. The people on the right now, the left is accusing us of genocide and ethnic cleansing and other stuff. The right now is like, well, how mainstream should it be to hate the Jews? Should it be very mainstream? Or should it be like a little off mainstream, right? And you're like, we're getting crushed in the middle, right? From both sides. It's not exactly very pretty, very present, very off the rack. So obviously we need to reinterpret this, folks, in the context.
It's modern crusher.
In the context of we have to interpret this in the context of olive oil. Let's see how the Alter Rebbe says these words. Now, the Meinoch, the waters of tranquility, are called Naicha Derucha. The waters of tranquility, when we spoke about this, the waters of Noach are there not to destroy, but actually to heal, right? To lift up the boat, to lift us up. They're called Naicha Derucha, which is nachas, like pleasure to God, which is the concept of Shabbos, rest, about which it is written, for on it he rested from all of his labors. What does it mean that God rested? Over the 6 days of creation, the divine attribute of kingship extended itself to create. In other words, God's attribute of kingship creates the world in 6 days. On the first day it says, and God said, let there be light. On the second day, let there be a firmament. On the third day, let the earth sprout forth vegetation. These are called days of doing, days of actions. And we mimic God in his image. And just like God created for 6 days, we create for 6 days. On the Shabbos came rest, the spirit of serenity, Naicha Derucha, when he no longer remained in descent, but withdrew back into himself, as it were. When a person performs labor, his mind focuses on the task, constrained by its parameters. One might say that his mind descends into the job at hand. He cannot focus on something else during this time. When he rests, his focus returns to its original position. So there's mind at rest is when you don't work. Mind that engaged is when you do work, right? So rest is on the Shabbos. When God rested on the seventh day, when he does so on every seventh day, the light of creation rises to its source, bringing the world with it, all of them rising. Like a person resting from his exertions, the divine energy ascends. A similar thing happens throughout the week when a person, surrounded by the Mayim Rabim of worry, by the financial anxieties of the week, engages in prayer, thus transforming the waters. Remember, when you use your financial anxieties and you neutralize them through contemplation, through meditation. We spoke about the 5 types of meditation. Now what happens is that you're taking the negative, you're turning it into a positive. You're turning your drawback into a comeback. Okay? He's engaging in prayer, that's transforming the waters, enabling them to ascend to become godly through the teva of prayer. Remember, we said the ark is called a teva, which means a word. When instead of drowning in the water, he builds himself a boat. Then the boat picks him up instead of drowns him down. You channel your financial anxieties into words of prayer. Now you're lifted up. Thus, prayer is a kind of Shabbos. Prayer itself is a Shabbos. The daily prayers throughout the week, the 6 days of doing, are a oasis in chaos, a reflection of Shabbos. This is all, however little, lower Shabbos. It is a temporary state, as evidenced by the fact that when it passes, the world goes back to a state of doing. So you have the oasis from chaos during the times of prayer, and you have the Shabbos every 6 days. However, there is a level beyond this one. It's called the higher Shabbos. It's important for us to be aware of what we're aspiring towards. It's called the higher Shabbos. Shabbos Ila'ah, in the original Aramaic, is the way it will be in the days to come, and not just one day of the week. Note, the Alter Rebbe doesn't mention the different degrees of crushing, the different degrees of floods, but I have to infer that based upon what we've learned, even though it doesn't state so explicitly, it's got to be that we have to reinterpret when we experience a different degree of crushing. If our anti-Semitism today is not, admittedly, it's not what we experienced in the Colosseum. It's not what we experienced in the Spanish Inquisition. By the way, when I went to Madrid, I couldn't wait to get out of there. We wanted to walk around and see the piazzas. Every piazza, my hair stood up on the back of my neck. Like, this is where my great uncles were burned alive. Auto da fe, they called them. Acts of faith. Acts of faith.
The same thing in Portugal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, beautiful countries, but I couldn't wait to get out of there. That's Spain and Portugal, right? So so we've been abused a lot more than we are today. Today we're in the golden era compared to what we went through in those days. And the Cossacks, the Ukrainians, they did to us. The Cossacks, I want to tell you, the Cossacks were October 7th on steroids for 2 years. For 2 years, every day.
1648,
I mean, the brutality that you read about on October 7th is what happened during the Cossacks. They were some of the most sadistic, brutal
excuses for human beings.
torturers. The Ukrainians have an anti-Semitism problem. This
Absolutely.
is not anything new. We knew this a long time
Not the
ago.
Cossacks. The Ukrainians are not the
Right.
Cossacks.
Who are the Cossacks?
They were from the Central Asian steppes.
What's
They
that?
were mainly Russian, weren't they?
No.
They were
Where is Cossacks? So what is Central Asian
So
steppes?
the, Uzbekistan has
All the stands.
all the stands.
All right, fine.
Azerbaijan.
All right.
San Laurel?
I don't know if those countries had borders in those days. Anyways, back to the story here, guys. What is Shabbos after the crushing that we've experienced for 5,786 years? After the crushing we've experienced for 3,338 years since Mount Sinai. After the crushing since 69 CE, when our temple was destroyed and the Romans have conquered us. The Romans wore a special sandal which had nails at the bottom. So when they walked over their enemies, they would crush. They would stab them to death. They would walk in them and stab them to death. This is what we've been under. We've been under the Roman sandal for almost 2,000 years. Now, the term Mei Noach, waters of serenity, comes from a prophecy of Isaiah. It says, as I've sworn that the waters of Noach shall never again pass over the earth. God refers to the waters of the flood as the waters of serenity. God tells Israel, so have I sworn not to be angry with you nor rebuke you. That's the context of the original verse in Isaiah. As I've sworn that the waters of Noach shall never again pass over the earth, so have I sworn not to be angry with you nor rebuke you. For though the flood waters come to purify the world, such intense purification is not always necessary. Thus, so have I sworn not to be angry nor rebuke you. True, as we have learned, the Mayim Rabim, the intense waters, the financial anxieties, offer the advantage of light that comes from darkness in the form of a spiritual love, a powerful love, called B'chol Me'odecha. Remember, B'chol Levav, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with B'chol Me'odecha, with all of your very. That is produced through the crushing. You love God with all of your very through going through anxieties. But there is yet another level called the surpassing love that comes from above. There's an Ahava Rabbah, a great love that comes from above. So there's two kinds of love that you can experience to God. Ready? There's a love which comes from challenge. It's called the great love. I want you to think about the kind of love you have for a loved one, like a wife or a child, after they've been through a tremendous illness. What happens? You love them so much more because you almost lost them. Agreed?
Yeah.
But then there's another kind of love which is even greater, and we rarely experience it. It's called Ahava Rabbah. It's also called sometimes Ahava B'Ta'am Nugim, great love, or it's called pleasurable love. It's a gift from above. You cannot create this love by yourself. The example I give for this love is Amex Black. Amex Black, American Express Black. American Express Black is a limitless credit card, which, oh really? Platinum's also? I did not know that. Is a limitless credit card, which gives you certain benefits and perks, right? And you can only get it by invitation only. You can't apply for it, right? I'm still waiting for my invitation. But
You know what? Keep davening.
in the same way that you can only be invited to that club, God chooses to bestow upon you. Ooh, very nice. God chooses to bestow upon you shiny. There's something called shiny object syndrome. I think it's called shiny object.
I have a question. Chassidus, from what I understand, and what we've learned, it says all these horrible things happen to us to make us stronger.
Yeah, that's what it's saying.
And all these horrible tortures and
It's
everything.
hard, hey? It's
Isn't it
hard.
hard to? It's hard to swallow,
It is hard to swallow.
right? I mean, it's just.
If you learn V'yodaita Maskva,
I guess it gives it perspective, and maybe it's a rationale, for what happened.
you know what? I want to remind you.
That's an awful lot.
I want to remind you. I want to encourage you to study V'yodaita Maskva again. You know the book that I wrote.
Yeah, I know.
Because when you reread that book, it needs to be studied over and over and over. The Rebbe Rashab would teach that discourse multiple times, many times over, because it's so life-changing that you got to study it again, because the person you were 2 years ago, 3 years ago when you read it is not the person you are now. And the challenges you face today after October 7th and after whatever challenges you're going through is new challenges that you need to use in order to reinterpret it. Because, this is how Chassidus reinterprets the bad things that happen to us. That God is not powerless. God knows exactly what he's doing. And he's crushing us in a way because he believes in us. And apparently he believes in us much more than we believe in ourselves. Let's just finish this up, guys. But there is yet another level called the surpassing love, Rabbi, that comes from above, which is far higher than even the love produced by Mayim Rabim, by the tumultuous waters. This is what is meant by the verse, his right hand embraces me, out of reach by human effort. It's his right hand, so to speak, anthropomorphically speaking, that draws us in. This love is given to us as a divine embrace. This love will be revealed in the days to come, about which it is written, for the mountains may move and the hills might falter, but my love shall not depart from you, and my covenant of peace shall not falter. Meaning higher divine kindness and the Rabba that comes from above, creating the state of his right hand embraces me. This love will act upon our it will act upon our very love, making it even stronger than it already is, as the verse states regarding the days to come. Behold, my servant shall prosper and be exceedingly elevated. V'gava me'od, and he will rise very, which can be read as your me'od will be elevated. Your very will be elevated, coming as it will from a vastly higher source. Now, I have just a question as I wrap this up. I just got a question to understand. I said before that the greater the steamroll crushing, the greater the light that shines after. Now, the Alter Rebbe says here that this is a love that comes as a gift from above. So you might say, well, it's got nothing to do with the steamrolling crushing. But I think it's like American Express Black. And by the way, Sultan says over here that Amex Black is not limitless. Otherwise, he would corner the global zinc market with it.
Zinc.
Why zinc? Why not gold?
To heal your cold.
Why not?
Or
What?
silver, to heal your cold.
Yeah, my gold. All right. Okay. But I'm just saying, Amex Black is not offered to anybody. I imagine that they offer it to people of a certain spending habit.
Ethnic background.
Right. So, well, not ethnic, but spending habits. In other words, you've got to be performing on a certain level in order to be worthy of that invitation. So in the same way, I say that the light that emerges in the great Shabbos and the higher Shabbos, in the higher Nachas, is actually disconnected from the degree of the crushing, but it is initiated by it. It's catalyzed. It's a catalyst that is actually disproportionate. So it's initiated by the intense crushing, but it's not related to it. I'll give you an example. It says like this. It says that in the Gemara Tainus, it says, if someone tells you that I struggle, that I toiled hard and I did not succeed, don't believe him. If somebody tells you that I did not toil hard and I succeeded, don't believe him. But if he tells you that I toiled hard and I succeeded, believe him. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Right. The Rebbe points out that the word is not succeeded. That's a bad translation. The word is, and I found. I toiled hard and I did not find. I didn't toil hard and I did find. Right? Only if I toiled hard and I found, then you believe.
What have you found?
What have you found? Now the Rebbe says, what does find mean? Find is something that happens to you when you don't expect it. I mean, when you find something, you stumble upon it. You discover. It's not like you were searching. Imagine I was looking. You don't look for buried treasure. You just stumble upon it, right? Finding.
You lose your keys. You
Look for love.
Yeah, but you find them when you're not. When you always find something in the last place you look. You know that, right?
Look for love is nothing more than vanity.
Yeah.
So finding has seemingly got nothing to do with effort. I mean, when you find something, the word related to effort would be succeed.
Okay.
But finding seems to imply that there was no effort. It was just something that came to you, right? So then the Rebbe asks, why is it that you had to toil in the first place? What does toil got to do with finding? Finding happens regardless of toil. The Rebbe says, no, you've got to do your max. You've got to do your max. When you've done your max, when you've done your best effort, that's when God gives you a finding. What does a finding mean? Something which is so great that it looks like you put no effort into it. It looks like it has nothing to do with your effort. That's how great it is. In other words, the success that you reach is so far removed from your capabilities that it looks like you didn't deserve it. But you needed to actually initiate it through giving your maximum effort. That's your reward. Exactly in the same way here. When we get crushed, not crushed like by a millstone, but crushed by a steamroller, and I'm not endorsing or condoning anti-Semitism, but if we look at it from a different perspective, we say, look, we're being crushed. It's not pretty. It's not pleasant. We're suffocating. We can't breathe down here. Right? And we realize that we're being crushed. And then we say, Hashem knows what he's doing. And the deeper crushing is there for a deeper yield. The yield that will come out of this steamrolling is a yield so much greater that it doesn't even look like it came from a steamroller. It came from something else. In other words, from the crushing of the olives, you experience not refined olive oil, but world peace. And you're like, whoa, how did that happen? But really, it's a result of us putting in our maximum effort. So what do we have to do on a very practical level? We have to wake up. What does it mean to wake up? Waking up means you have to meditate. That's what it means. We spoke about the 5 levels of meditation. You have to meditate. You got to take the crushing. You got to take the steamrolling. And instead of feeling fearful, that would be the absolute wrong reaction. You got to turn your fear into faith. You've got to turn your discomfort into a new relationship with God. A guy sent me a text yesterday. It was amazing. This guy walked into shul after October 7th. Like a few days after October 7th, he walks into shul. And he wrote to me like this. He wrote to me just yesterday. 2.5 years ago, I timidly came to your Chabad, seeking to identify as a Jew. I was welcomed and made to feel at home. No one judged me as anyone else other than a Jewish soul. Since then, I've never met anyone other than joyful Chabadniks, filled with love and warmth. People filled with love, who only want to help others on the journey they choose. Thank you for broadening my perspective. P.S. I'm still using tefillin daily. Still using tefillin daily. And the guy was telling me yesterday that he experienced a medical miracle, the kinds of which I've been working through with him for a few months. A medical miracle, the kinds of which he has a disease that people don't come out of. And he said it's over. It's really, really amazing.
Wow.
Why am I telling you this story? How did I get into this story? Because crush it.
Shit.
Oh, the Jews of October 7th, right? So October 7th, he has a Jew that woke up. It took October 7th to get him to lay tefillin every single day, right? To give charity like he's never given before, to engage with Yiddishkeit like he's never engaged before. He had tears in his eyes yesterday. He said to me, Rabbi, thank you for connecting me back to my Bubby and my Zaidi. Right? That's what he said to me, right? We have to wake up. And if we don't wake up, then we're letting the steamroll instead of produce our finest yield.
Heading to Jerusalem.
Yeah. Don't. What does God need to do? Give us a worse steamroller? Let God say, oh, they finally woke up. There's no need for more steamrolling. Because you know what? I'm sure he's got other steamrollers, God forbid. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Chas v'shalom. We shouldn't have to experience, more crushing. What we need to do right now is to wake up. And when does that start? It starts right here, right now. And I think at a very practical level, I want to encourage you to wear a yarmulke for the rest of your life every single day. Because if you do that, it looks good, man. It's awesome. If you can wear a yarmulke every single day for the rest of your life, think about that. I know, but you identify as a Jew, man. It's amazing. I want to encourage you to think about this, guys. Think about it, guys. Think about it. Think about this for a moment, right? And maybe you need something else, but just think about it. What are you going to do on a practical level to say, God, I am now awake? Think about that. Who do you identify? How do you identify? That's an interesting question today, right? Right?
Yeah, right.
When you think about how you identify, folks, when you think about that for a moment, you realize, have I woken up or have I not woken up? Imagine what happens is you walk around your country club and people are like, the horror to see a guy with a yarmulke in the country club. Like, oh my God, what happened to him? This is way too Jewish, right? You know what happens when you wear a yarmulke? You don't do certain things, and you don't eat certain things, and you don't say certain things because you know that you're an ambassador, right? And I think it would be so amazing if world Jewry would wake up and wear yarmulkes. You know that Gentiles are starting to do this. Gentiles are starting to put mezuzahs on their doors because they want to make sure the Jews are not feeling alone. Isn't that amazing? A lady stopped me on my street the other day, and she said, I just want you to know that we feel so sorry for what you guys are going through. And I said to her, thank you. It's people like you that are going to make all the difference, because a friend in need is a friend indeed. Thank you for that.
Even the Pope is wearing it.
You made her day.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, guys, now is the time for us to wake up. Let's take the crushing so we can finally reach the real Shabbos. Let's get that invitation to American Express Black, right? Let's raise the bar. Enough with the steamrolling. We'll say, Hashem, thank you for teaching us the lesson. There's no more lessons necessary because we have graduated. Thank you very much.
Hold on.